everyone, and welcome back to my GNM Digestible Morsels series. So in the past video I started explaining about tracts. We covered what they are and how they cause a hanging healing. In this video I'll be focusing on how tracts cause allergies and then look at what we can do when we discover that we have tracts. So to look at allergies, we will take an example. You have been enjoying foods with gluten all your life, and then one day you read that gluten causes bowel problems and can actually lead to bowel cancer. Now, if you were particularly fearful of cancer in general, or maybe you had recently lost somebody close to you who had cancer, this information could actually cause you to have a DHS. Depending on how you perceive this information, this would most likely be an indigestible morsel conflict, as it is to do with food and digesting food. So all of a sudden, you pledge to never eat gluten foods again, further enforcing an indigestible morsel belief. Then, a few weeks or months down the line, you are eaten out and have some bread. Hey presto, you trigger your indigestible morsel program. Your stomach bloats and it goes into healing, and you get what we class, I suppose, as IBS symptoms. Now, as the symptoms begin in the healing phase, as the conflict has resolved, this could be later on or after you've eaten something else. Then you could possibly misappropriate the symptoms with being caused by another food that you've just eaten and create another indigestible morsel belief that you are also allergic to it or intolerant to this food too. And this is often how multiple food allergies and IBS will develop. So we really need to be careful with how we label food in our own minds. I was victim to this quite a few years ago. It's quite a revelation, really, to understand this. I'm now eating a wide range of foods again and having no IBS from them. Another example is regarding dairy allergy of infants. So this is something that's not quite so easy to, people say, well, I've been allergic to milk since birth or whatever, But let me explain how this would occur. So the baby is taken off breastfeeding and given formula. Now this can cause a conflict, which is why weaning is so important. The baby's system is not used to anything other than mum's milk, so this new milk is an indigestible morsel to them. There may also be a separation conflict around the mouth as the baby is missing the touch of mum's breast on its mouth while it's feeding. This rash, along with the indigestible morsel symptoms, are diagnosed as a dairy allergy. The child is brought up with the belief that they are allergic to milk, therefore this is an indigestible morsel for them because of their beliefs as well. So this is like cementing this belief in. And then to further cement this in, you get all the bad press that's going round about dairy. And I'm not saying that I agree with, the way that it's farmed, en masse, but actually, organic, small produced sort of raw milk, minimally processed milk, it actually does have a lot of benefits for us. So That is 2 examples with food, but the same can happen with substances. Say cat fur, which can often trigger asthma or breathing difficulties. So to understand this, breathing difficulties and asthma would be related to a scare fright, which is a fright that makes you take a sharp intake of breath, like, like that, or a territorial fear. And this would be dependent on gender, etc., being controlled in the temporal lobe. And if there's an asthma constellation, it would be involving both. So this would tell me that the person who had the allergy has had a fright while being in touch with a cat. Either the cat had swiped, hissed, or otherwise scared the person, or they had experienced a fright while being in contact with a cat. The track would be the cat fur causing the breathing difficulties to return. So if we have a recurring problem, first we need to decide on the conflict, which can be determined through the symptoms as I explained in episode 8. Then thinking back to when the problem started, and if you think it's never been the same since blah blah, then that is a really good indicator. So next we can think of what reminds us of that situation or trauma. It may be useful to keep a journal which may reveal a pattern, or if it has been going on a while, you will likely know what triggers it. However, and here is the thing to remember, it's like thinking on your head. Remember the biggest concept of the second biological law. We experience symptoms when we are healing, after the conflict is resolved. So therefore, anything that flares it up is actually resolving the conflict. So when you had that flare up, what was resolved? So an example, you get a rash from cuddling a dog. Did stroking or cuddling a dog resolve a separation issue for you? Rather than thinking it can only be a negative conflict relating to a dog, or that you are allergic to dog fur, it is really time to think differently and think, well, it's possible that the dog fur is triggering a negative association, a negative track, so it's triggering a biological program for you, but it is also just as likely that that dog, cuddling that dog, is resolving a conflict for you. So you have to look at it both ways. So once you have found out your conflict and your tracks, what do you do about it? Well, you may not have to do anything else. As I explained before, the subconscious mind, which runs all of our processes and programs in the background, will basically run on automatic pilot. It is unconscious. There is no logic filter or reasoning. But by realizing these programs and tracks, we are bringing what was hidden in the subconscious to the conscious mind. The conscious mind is our filter for our subconscious. So when we do this, it can literally neutralize that program, because we are applying logic, applying reasoning, and filtering it back to our subconscious then with these sort of understandings. So it can literally neutralize that program and the connections or tracks associated with it. Healing at psyche level is one of the things that Dr. Hamer often stated is such an important part of GNM therapy, and one so commonly missed, even in the alternative health world. We can heal at the physical and brain level, but if healing is not completed at the psyche level, the healing is not complete. It has to be healed on all three, because they are in essence one. So if one of those aspects is missing, then we are not healed. If the problem keeps recurring, you will need to do some work on changing your perception of the track, creating a positive association with the track, or even just telling yourself assertively, speaking to yourself in the mirror, for example, and telling yourself that you are grateful for what your body has done to help over the years, but you are no longer in danger from this conflict, and the track is not an indication that it will happen again. It may sound a bit silly, and I know it can feel a bit silly actually doing this as well, but it really does help. Though you may need to repeat it in practice a few times. And I've actually heard some case studies where really severe allergies have been basically cured in this way. Of course, you can just avoid the track as people do with allergies, but this is not full healing. It's always going to be there. Going back to my operation and the associated conflicts and tracks, if you remember, the feet and scar flare-ups have massively reduced in frequency and intensity. Mostly this was done at psyche level through identifying and understanding the conflicts and the tracks. But I would also do things such as creating a positive association, for example, between cold bare feet and feeling clean and fresh. And I did this as suggested by Caroline Marcolin actually, by walking mindfully barefoot through the morning dew on the grass on 3 consecutive mornings. When I say mindfully, I mean I stayed really focused on what I was doing and my intention in what I was doing. As each step I would feel the cool, crisp dew, and I visualised my feet being cleansed with the wet dew and being fresh as I walked. So I'm sure once you identify your tracks, then you can come up with something creative to help you to switch your association from negative to positive with that track. So hopefully this last 2 episodes have helped you to understand tracks a little deeper. And as you can now see and appreciate how complex they are and can be, you will understand that there is no hard and fast rule as to how they can be neutralised, because they are so subjective and can be really complex. But also I hope it has helped to show you how the simplest of instances or the simplest of repetitive thoughts can cause such a chronic condition, which can often be quite severe. It's quite a difficult concept to face when you've got a chronic condition and you realise that it's your own thoughts that have been adding all of these layers to it over the years. But think of it a different way. If you have built this up in your mind, you can dismantle it too. You have that power to do it. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.